Okay, hopefully I can get through this. Hi. Thank you, everyone who waited patiently for me to be able to do this review. I got sick on Tuesday night when I was doing my regular job, and my voice was just shot. It wasn't laryngitis. I was actually sick. It wasn't COVID, as far as I was aware. I did the home test, and it wasn't COVID. I don't know. It may have been the RSV thing or one of the other things that's around. But I was just just not able to do my regular job anyway because I couldn't really talk very well for long periods of time. I'm much better. Um, I barely got off the couch on 2 of those days, or out of my chair on 2 of those days. Um, and hopefully I can get through this today because I have been avoiding watching any other reviews and summaries and stuff like that of the chapter, so that way I wouldn't have anybody else's influence on my opinions for the chapter review. Brenda has been very much liking the fact that I haven't been having to work in the evenings because it means she gets to snuggle me more and gets lots of extra pets. But hopefully tomorrow I'll be back doing my regular job. So hopefully I can get through this. If there's a lot of extra cuts in it, I apologize. That probably means I had a coughing attack. My voice is not 100%, but it's better. So let's see how this goes. So for One Piece chapter 1097, titled Genie, I love the cover page for this. So, I love the fact that this is referencing the fact that one of Kuma's favorite foods is salmon because he's a bear, and he's hunting salmon in the river. And we get that, and we see Ginny off to the side with like tongs and a grill all set up to grill up the salmon, and he's like, using his power to just like pop the salmon out of the river. And then we see the 2 guys off in the background that have with these appearances are pretty much confirmed to be the they're the 2 kids that we met in the previous chapter that became Bonnie or Kuma and Ginny's friends after Kuma healed them. And then we're gonna see this pretty much confirms that they are 2 of the members and end up being part of Bonnie's crew later on. So we see them, and they're all it's a moment of levity. It's like having fun for a little bit, and I like that. And I don't know if this was something that was planned or what, but it's just Kuma catching salmon in a river, which I love. And of course, because I'm me, and I'm a Disney nerd and a Pixar nerd, this just made me think of the scene in Brave where Merida is having to teach her mother, who has been turned into a bear, how to hunt salmon in a river. And just like that whole scene there is just hilarious. And everything. So we have that. Into the actual chapter, we cut to 8 years after the God Valley incident, so 30 years ago. We have it that Kuma has very much set up residence within this church that him and Jenny have been living in. And he's grown up quite a bit. I believe he's supposed to be 17 years old at this point in time, and he's just like Pastor Bartholomew Kuma of this little church that him and Jenny have been living in. And we see way in the distance, we see probably the capital of the Sorbet Kingdom. And we see Kuma, 17 years old now, looking very happy, very, very, very large because he's, the Buccaneer genes and everything, the lineage factor. We see that they tend to have lots of elderly people come to the church to have their aches and pains and stuff like that healed by Kuma with his pawpaw fruit. So we see that they are just like, this is so nice. And, it's just so comforting to know you grew into be such a sweet boy. Your parents would be so proud of you and everything. They did a great job with raising you and everything like that. Whether or not this means that they are aware of the fact that Kuma and his parents ended up being slaves for a good chunk of the beginning of Kuma's life is a little bit left up for debate. But I can also see Kuma and Jenny kind of hiding that fact. We also see that Kuma has like bear ears on his head, which when he was a kid, we didn't see the bear ears. So I'm assuming that's just his hairstyle that he does, which is adorable. We see him healing, old people and everything like that. We kind of get an explanation in this chapter that a lot of the old people on this island in the Sorbet Kingdom have kind of been cast out of the capital because they can't really work. And we learn throughout the course of the chapter that the current king of the Sorbet Kingdom, is this tyrant, this horrible king and everything like that. Probably even worse than King Seki of the Lelucia Kingdom, or whatever that kingdom was. I don't remember. It's gone now. So we see Kuma helping them, and he's wearing like the typical kind of pastor garb and everything like that. Two things I wanted to note with this chapter is this chapter is coming out just after Halloween. It also is kind of somewhat coming out during the time frame that is associated with Dia de Muertos in regards to Mexico and stuff like that for those countries. Day of the Dead and everything like that. Hence the Remember Me shirt from Coco. If you want more of my opinions on Day of the Dead and everything like that, go watch my reviews on Coco and Book of Life. And I think I have a One Piece video where I talked a lot, or two One Piece videos where I talked a lot about Dia de los Muertos. But so we have those. But the other thing that I wanted to point out, and this kind of ties into the Kuma thing, is it is also this Sunday is All Saints Day, if I'm remembering correctly for that, which is where you're supposed to remember all of those who have passed on within your community and stuff like that over the last year, and subsequently other ones that have passed on within the life of your community. I know at my church on this day we tend to ring bells for all of the different saints that have passed within the course of the last several years. My grandmother being one of them, and other people that I was very familiar with and everything like that at my church that have passed within that time frame. So I kind of like that connection there that they have with Kuma. Also, because I'm Lutheran, it's also last week was Reformation Sunday, which is in celebration of when Martin Luther nailed the 95 Theses to the chapel doors. So there's some of that reference there. But back to this. So we see like he's healing the people and everything like that, and gathering up all of their, all their pain bubbles and everything like that. And they're just like, this is great, but we can't thank you enough and everything, like, God bless your magical hands and everything like that. And I wish we could come here on weekdays. And then we see like a foot getting stomped down. Fat chant, Sundays only. And we cut over and we get to see Jenny, who is now all grown up, and she's 21 years old. Looking very similar to Bonnie, which is not surprising to anyone. If you want to go by either the logic that Bonnie's biological mother, or that Bonnie is a clone of Ginny that got raised by Kuma, some variation of that. Depending on how that ends up getting arranged, we'll find out. But we see Ginny, and she's wearing a tank top and like the really short cutoff jeans and everything like that, and the tank top says sister on it. So I was just like, popped into my head, is like, is she like a punk version of like Maria Von Trapp from The Sound of Music? I kid you not, Maria Von Trapp and Kuma would probably get along great. And everything like that. And like, Jenny's like yelling at her. It's like, where do you freeloading old bags get off asking for even more help? And they're just like, ha ha ha, if you weren't so cute, we would think you're a little cheapskate and everything like that. And everything like that. And they're just, you're just, and she's just like, go flap your gums at the nursing home and everything like that. And she, they're just, Jenny's like kind of trying to shoo them off and everything like that. And they're like, we tell you to wash your mouth if you weren't so cute and everything like that. And one of the other old people is just like, we've heard there's no end to the number of suitors that come knocking on her door and everything like that. It's just like, hey, Jenny is the typical ode of beauty. And she's just like, don't change the subject and everything like that. And they're just, it's just like, none of them have a chance with Kuma here. So they're just like, everything, they ship Kuma and Jenny. They ship Kuma and Jenny, the old people do. So we have that. And like, yeah, Kuma would be enough to scare off a lot of suitors, I would assume. And Kuma is just like, oh, you're too kind. And Jenny's just yelling at her, just like, you're the one who's too kind, and everything like that, just like glaring at him and everything. And they're getting all of the older people kind of like, out of the church and everything like that. But one of the ladies is just like, to tell the truth, we'd love to donate and support our Kumashi, but we've all been struggling just to meet the Celestial Dragon's tribute. Just like, I'm sure you've heard about our new king, right? And this is where we get introduced to the Tyrant King, who, whether or not he's supposed to end up being like, whether or not Kuma ends up taking over for him isn't 100% clear in this chapter. That's part of what we're kind of trying to figure out here. But it's King Bakori, I think was his name. And he's just a cold-hearted monster, and he's hell-bent on paying the tribute, but he doesn't matter. He doesn't care how much it's going to cost his civilians, his citizens, and everything like that. And he's just like kicked all the old people out of the main kingdom and everything like that. So kind of similar to what happens in the Goa kingdom when, if you can't really contribute to our home anymore, if you're not the one that's in charge of the money or something like that, it's just like you're not worth keeping around anymore, so we'll just like chuck you to the curb type of a thing, or similar things that happen in Wano, unfortunately, and such during Orochi and Kaido's rule. So we get some of that and everything like that, and all of them are just like, yeah, he's the worst, and it's just like, can you believe that, and everything, and it's just like, he's just horrible. One of the old ladies is just like, the other day an acquaintance of mine ended up starving to death in their cell. They don't even feed them in the prisons. And we just see the king just being a horrible bastard, and everything. So we just see him being horrible. And he's a cheapskate, and he doesn't care, and he's just so cruel to his people and everything like that. And they're just like, he's happy to bend over backwards to the celestial dragons, but he doesn't care at all about the health of his people and everything like that, or how many of us get killed in the process. And Kuma is just kind of like sending them off with a smile of just like, I can get rid of any aches and pains you have, it's fine, and mild illnesses and everything like that. Just come, just every week. And everything. And they send them off with a big smile and everything. And then we see floating in the church, we see the big pain bubble, which is clearly the reference back to Thriller Bark with what happened with Kuma when he pushed all of the pain and exhaustion out of Luffy and everything. And then, we're going to see what happens in a second. And, makes the deal with Zoro. And I think that's one of the reasons that ended up earning Zoro Kuma's respect, because he basically did the same thing that Kuma is about to do here, and has, that Kuma continued to do for quite a while, probably in this regard, where he takes a big breath and then he shoves his hands into the pain bubble and just absorbs all of the pain. And we just hear like the screaming, and like we cut out to outside of the church, and we see Jenny just sitting out there. So she's not inside witnessing this exactly, but she's hearing the screams of who is essentially her best friend, probably man she's in love with and everything like that, screaming and everything like that as he's absorbing all of this all of this pain and everything. Which, I mean, this bubble itself probably pales in comparison to like Luffy's bubble, but Kuma has been doing this. We're going to find out Kuma has been doing this week after week for a good chunk of time now, in order to help the people of the island. And we just see Jenny crying and everything like that, and like just that's why she doesn't want them coming every single day, or coming more days, because they need like this week worth of time, so that way Kuma can recover before he has to do this again and take out even more pain and everything like that from the older people, and from the other people who come to them for healing. he's his hands of liberation. He's liberating them from their pain and everything like that. And then he's taking it into himself. And we cut to where we see him laying on the bed, and Jenny's like nursing him back to health and everything like that. And she's got like the ice pack sitting on his head, trying to help him cool down and everything like that. And she's like cleaning his wounds and everything. And she's just like, they have no idea that you're taking on any of their pain, and you keep doing this week after week. And he's just like, it can't be helped. If someone doesn't shoulder their burdens, that pain and suffering of theirs won't just disappear. It's just like it'll be left to fester and returning to haunt them again and again. So this is implying that probably Kuma let something like that happen before, where maybe with the two boys it ended up becoming the members of Bonnie's crew later on, that Kuma and Jeannie's friends, that maybe he healed them, and then maybe however a couple of days later or whatever, like the bubbles just showed back up or something, or however long later the bubbles showed back up and hit the boys again, and then Kuma had to figure out, oh, okay, so I can't just leave it there. I have to heal them, and then I have to do something with it. Whether or not Ginny would have also offered herself up for some of that stuff, occasionally, I wouldn't be surprised, but Kuma's also probably like, I'm the Buccaneer, I can take a lot more of this beating, of this pain and everything like that than you can, so I'll be the one to do it. So it's kind of like a Ponzi scheme, but in a good way, I guess. Would be a good way of showing that. And Kuma's just like, but more than anything, I'm just glad that I can do something to help them feel happier. I'm sorry for putting you through this, though. I'll get tougher so you won't have to worry. And she's like, that's not the point. It's like, the whole thing of just like, yeah, that's not the point that I'm angry about here. It's bad enough that you have to do it at all. And then Kuma's just like, well, we got a little bit of food, food is thanks today, so, let's lead up. And she's like, yay, dinner time. And we just see them, happily eating and everything like that. Which is, of course, call back to the end of the last chapter. They finally get to eat. I did want to point out some of the other things that are going on 30 years ago in the One Piece timeline, just slight overview. This is during when Garp and Chinchou have their big fight, and Garp flattens Chinchou's head. This is also when Oden leaves Wano along with Izo, Nekomamushi, and Inarashi and everything to join the Whitebeard Pirates and everything. There's also quite a few births that happened during this time frame, including Robin and Horty Jones and Rob Lucci and Monette, and several other of the couple of the Big Mom children and everything, along with Boa, Sanders, Sonia are kind of the main ones. So those are just some of the things that are going on in the One Piece world 30 years ago, overlapping with this time frame. Then we cut to 25 years ago, where Kuma is 22 years old now, and that would be Ginny is, I think, 26, I think. It's supposed to be 26 because she's like 4 years older than him. And they're just happy and everything, and she's just like, Kumashi, let's get married. And he's just like, we can't. It's like, I can slightly relate to this. My mom is the one that proposed to my dad. So there's that. She's just like, yeah, let's get married. Just like, Kuma, I've told you about my parents. I didn't go well for them, right? And that's kind of one of the flashbacks that he has. And Ginny is just like, what the hell kind of reaction is that? Of course we can. You love me, right? Let's, just admit it, you dope. So again, this is just implying even more that Ginny is some form of Bonnie's mother, either her biological mother or clone of, Bonnie is the clone of Ginny, depending on stuff that Kuma then raised. I'm still pretty sure that Ginny is the biological mother, and that Bonnie just didn't necessarily get... Okay. I don't know if this has been brought up by anyone at the moment. Probably has. We saw several chapters ago when Bonnie was chasing Vegapunk. She used her distortion future thing to make herself big and buff and everything to trap Vegapunk. I wonder if that is supposed to be a variation of the future where she inherited the Buccaneer lineage factor from Kuma. Because it's implied that Bonnie did not, if Kuma is her biological father, which seems to be either what they're setting up for in some variation. That she just didn't inherit that gene from Kuma. And maybe that was a distortion of a future where she did inherit it. So I guess that's a possibility. Someone else has probably brought that up in some form or whatever in a different video, but that occurred to me either the other day or a little bit more now. And everything, but we have this moment where Kuma is remembering, when his father, was, screaming about the fact, I'm the one of the Buccaneer blood, leave my wife alone, she's normal, and leave my son alone, and everything like that. And Kuma doesn't want to put that same burden on Ginny, because if they get married and if they have any children, then the same fate may befall the both of them that happened to Kuma and his parents and everything, where they would just be captured again and become a slave. And he doesn't want to put Ginny through that again, and he doesn't want to put Ginny through what his mother went through. And everything. So we see that. And Kuma's just kind of like, okay, I'm going to change the subject. Oh, look, Rebellion Army. Here, let's read this newspaper article here. And we see him reading the article, and he's just like, look at this. It's another article about those freedom fighters. They finally issued wanted posters for them after they incited riots in several countries. And we see a picture of Dragon, and this is very similar to the picture of Dragon that we see back with the Roger flashback before he has the tattoo. And we also see that it's the similar Dragon to what we see. Did he have the tattoo during the O'Hara flashback when we see him talking with Vegapunk? I don't remember off the top of my head. But this would have been 25 years ago. That's before the Great Age of Pirates happened, I believe. And they're just like, he looks so cool and everything. And, it's just like, one day I want to head out to sea and dedicate my life to saving people too. And that's Kuma's opinion there. And we see, the two guys show up that are like the two kids that were their friends and everything. And they seem to be some of the potential suitors for Ginny, but they're also definitely like friends with Kuma and everything. So we see that. And they're just like, showing up, and they're just like, hey, we got fish, and, we got a great catch today and everything like that. Why don't we all share together and everything like that? And Kuma's just like, hey, yay, thanks. And then Ginny just like picks up a barrel of something or a tub and just throws it at Kuma. She's just like, idiot. In regards to stuff that would be 25 years ago, because that would line up with this time frame as well, just to kind of skim over that a little bit. We have someone in Wano refusing to work in the factory, and they get executed. The Roger pirates arrive in Laugh Tale 25 years ago, and that's when everything happens, when we see during the Roger section of the flashback with Odin. And all of that, and then Odin goes back to Wano. Shocky predicts the beginning of the Great Age of Piracy. That's when Hercules lands on the Bowen archipelago and everything. That's when Heracles lands there. And everything. We hear just more annoying stuff about Orochi and everything like that. When he makes Odin dance in the street. Perona was born. Leo was born. Kaku was born. I think there's a set of the Charlotte, one of the quintuplets, the set of 4 that was the 4 of the long arm hybrid children she has. The Yeti-Cool brothers were born during that time frame. And Meshuri was born during that time frame. Not really anybody else. It's all that interesting. Were born 25 years ago, to put that in context with other things that were happening. So Ginny and Kuma are probably also reading in the newspaper about, what happened, about the Revolutionary Army, building up and everything like that, the freedom fighters and all of that. We actually get a little more history about the freedom fighters in this chapter as well. And Dragon. I will get to that during this chapter. But it's implying that they probably also read about what happened with Roger being named King of the Pirates and everything like that. So we'll see how that goes. Also, it shows that they tend to pay attention to what's going on in the newspaper, which is, good. Then we cut to 22 years ago when Kuma is 25. So that means Ginny would be 29, if I'm doing my math correctly. Since we don't know Bonnie's exact age because of her devil fruit powers, there's a theory that she's like older than she is. There's a theory that she's actually like a kid, considering all of the kid comments and quips that keep getting made about her and everything by various characters. But it's like the "you young whippersnappers" kind of context in some of the cases when Vegapunk's the one that says it. And then, of course, considering the fact that the Gorosei are definitely older than they appear, is implied with that as well, for what they think is going on, for how they would look at just anyone beyond a certain age point as just a child compared to them. It's like you hooligans don't even know what you're talking about type of a thing. So 22 years ago, we have it that something major happens where it gets explained that, well, it's going to get explained in a moment, but what the king did was that he essentially divided the Sorbet Kingdom into two parts, where like the northern half is for where the capital is and for where probably a lot of the like good farming land is and stuff like that. And that's where all of the rich people live in the city. And then the southern half, which is where Kuma and Ginny and where a bunch of the other, where the elderly people village is, that they are basically just a lawless area to just save on money. So that was just like, oh, well, we'll protect where all the rich and important people live and where the king lives. But the other half of the country, I don't care. It's kind of what's implied. So Kuma has shown up at the capital, and at the castle town is just what it's called. Kuma has shown up there, and he seems to have gained his typical hat that he has, his little teddy bear eared hat. And he's just like, you can't, you've kidnapped people. You can't do that. Let them go. And, they've got like probably a bunch of the older people, probably some other young people also gathered up who weren't very useful to the king there. And like the guards there, whoever were capturing them, were just like, what are you yelling about, you big oaf? Are you trying to pick a fight with the royal army? That's treason, He's apparently a pastor from some church in the southern province. Is like what someone else says, and they've got, a bunch of the old people kind of, captured. And he's just like, one of the royal guards or whatever, just like, hey, pastor, didn't you hear about the new law? We're allowed to do whatever we want to you southerners. And Kuma, very understandably, it's just like, you're planning on enslaving them. I won't let this pass. And he activates what is definitely an Ursus shock. Probably not nearly as strong as the one that he used at Thriller Bark or some of the other cases where we've seen him use the Ursus shock, but still pretty good. Pretty good size one and everything to, knock away a bunch of the royal guards and everything like that. Because Kuma's had his power for a good chunk of time at this point in time. And while he definitely probably uses it for mostly healing, he probably has also done a bit of training in regards to like getting to the point where he can, defend himself and defend Ginny and defend other people and stuff like that, just in case. Not that I think Ginny necessarily needs to be always defended by the big, strong teddy bear man, but, Kuma will still do that because that's in his nature, is to want to protect. And everything, and he attacks, that, and then this results in Kuma getting captured, and we see where the king is talking to just one of the other members of the guard and everything like that, and he's just like, this new policy might be a little bit hard for people to swallow, and the king is just like, that's no consequence. It is of no consequence. They'll soon grow accustomed to their new status. Before long, it won't bother them. They'll all come to see the Southerners for the vermin they are. And this is where we get the picture where we see the kingdom has been kind of cut in half, where we have the top half for the north, is where, as I said, where the capital is, and probably where a good chunk of the good farmland is and everything. And that's where, the majority, where the amount of the celestial dragon tribute will come from. And that's where the actual law enforcement is. And then the other half, the southern half, where Kuma's church is and where the old folks village is the lawless area. And their intention is to basically have it be that anyone from the southern part of the island can be turned into a slave to be forced to work. Is basically where they're headed. So we cut to inside of a jail cell, where we see Kuma in the jail cell along with Ginny and 3 other guys that are, I think we do recognize them as future members of Bonnie's crew. Particularly the one with like the cowboy hat is the main one, and like the hair going up like a rooster are the main ones. And Kuma is just like, tell me what made them arrest you. And Bonnie and Ginny is just like, we raised hell trying to get them to free you, Kumashi. And they're just like, yep, they gave us a thrashing in the end. And we just see like this loyalty that like Kuma has developed, Kuma has earned, with being around, Ginny and these other boys and everything. So we just see that, that loyalty that he has earned from them, which I love, and everything, which it then just kind of adds on to the fact that like those same men end up being part of Bonnie's crew much later on, being part of the Bonnie Pirates much later on. Because of this loyalty, not just to Bonnie's mother, but to Kuma as well. Because in all honesty, even if Bonnie is a clone of Ginny is still her mother. And Kuma is still her father, because he clearly raised her. We get that with the flashbacks. And with the way that Bonnie looks at Kuma and acts about Kuma. So then we cut to where we still have like them talking, and Kuma is just like, Ginny, this country is on the brink of becoming a cesspool of bigotry and hatred. And she's just like, the king is just the celestial dragon puppet, and this new policy was given to him from on high, so he was permitted to make these changes and everything. And he's just like, if you plan on starting a rebellion, you'll be signing up to fight the world government as well. And then we hear explosions outside, and we see just like, oh no, someone's coming, Your Majesty, we have to flee. And then we see silhouettes that are very obviously Dragon and Ivankov showing up, and given the rest of the full page spread, it's Kuma, Ivankov, and Dragon, obviously, showing up. And Ivankov is just like, as if we would let you escape. This is what you get. You want to be Celestial Dragon. And Dragon is just like, you make me sick. And we see like the people celebrating and everything like that. So like, the king's been overthrown. His slavery laws are no more. And we just see people happy and everything like that. Because while the king and probably some parts of the higher royalty, nobility, whatever, were probably somewhat okay with, the whole slave thing from the Southerners, the majority of the people on the island probably were not, but they didn't really have the ability to fight back against it. So we get that. And then we see Ivankov and Dragon make their way to the cells. And Ivankov is just like, Dragon is just like, it looks like the man that you recommended went on quite a rampage. And Ivankov is just like, you're going to love him, Dragon. And Ivankov is just like, Ginny, Kuma, it's, me, it's like, I see you've gotten yourselves caught and everything like that. And, Ginny and Kuma are just like so happy to see Ivankov and everything. Pretty sure Ivankov probably has his devil fruit at this point in time. We still need to find out exactly when he gets his devil fruit, but maybe that'll get revealed later on. And everything. And Ivankov is just like, do you want to come with us and you want to change the world and everything? And they're just like, yes. And, we get the narrator boxes coming back, and it's just like, and so this mysterious band saved the kingdom of Sorbet from the corruption of the world government. The onset of the great pirate era and the tragedy of O'Hara spurred the freedom fighters to take up arms against the corrupt regime of the world. It didn't take long for the two pillars of the movement to become three as Dragon and Ivankov recruited Kuma to their cause. The organization would adopt a new name, one that echoed around the world, the Revolutionary Army. And we see kind of this proto version of the Revolutionary Army. I don't think any of the people that we see in the picture are like current members of the Revolutionary Army beyond Dragon and Ivankov and technically Kuma. We see Ginny, and she's definitely joining this army to be with Kuma and to be with her big bro and everything, because she's probably very happy to see Ivankov again. And we see a woman with a top hat, but she's not Bella Betty, because Bella Betty is much younger than she would be at this point in time. I don't remember exactly how old Bella Betty is, but she's not that old. And beyond the guy with the sword and the hat in the background that has like the mask, beyond him maybe being a proto version of like Karasu, I don't know if any of these people are still like current members of the Revolutionary Army. I'm sure a lot of people are going to be like, hey, the lady in the hat is Luffy's mom. She has to be. It's just like, okay, sure, go with that. Go on that ramp. Go on that tangent. Sure. And so we get a lot of this. We see, I did want to go over a little bit as to like some of the other, 22 years ago stuff that was going on. Obviously, there's, Nico Olvia is, of course, captured by the Marines, freed by Saul. Everything happens on O'Hara with that incident and everything in the Buster Call. One of the other things that happens is Gaimon, back in the East Blue, ends up trapped in the treasure chest. That happened 22 years ago. Hachan saves Rayleigh from drowning and becomes friends with him. Shiki escapes from Impel Down. Shanks first meets Yasopp. Ace was bored. That happened 22 years ago. And Rouge died, unfortunately. Dragon and Ivankov and Kuma fully form the Revolutionary Army. 22 years ago is also when Dragon and Vegapunk end up talking at O'Hara. And in regards to other births that happened 22 years ago, we have Sabo, Sugar, Beppo, Ideo, Nojiko, Kuina, Helmeppo, and Ulti. So even in that regard, we still get some other moments where we get a little bit more of the history of the Revolutionary Army, freedom fighters becoming Revolutionary Army. Dragon still does not have his face tattoo yet. We still don't know the exact time frame that he got that, but I think we're going to get a hint to that in this chapter. We see Dragon is explaining this, like, we still kind of lacked funds, so we kind of have to act as mercenaries and support those in countries that are already kind of in upheaval and going up against, bad governments and stuff like that, and help them and act kind of as like supporting forces and stuff like that. And all of that. And then our recruits everybody gets weapons training and they get drills and all this other training that we end up seeing later on kind of gets, in a roundabout way, gets paid off with what we see with like, Sabo and Koala and everything like that, and Hack. That we see later on when we get like Sabo's little, I know it's technically like, filler in the anime, but it's fairly good setup for how they explain how Sabo gets trained and everything like that with the Revolutionary Army during his childhood, and everything. So we see that. But Dragon's like, but I want us to grow into the boundless army spread throughout the world. And this is where eventually we do know that all of the that there ends up being Revolutionary Army branches in each of the four blues, along with the Grand Line for the Paradise side and the New World, where Dragon is kind of the one that's in charge of everything, and where we have Sabo ends up becoming the chief of staff, and Baltagol was in the New World, and then Ivankov was kind of the head of the Revolutionary Army in the Paradise side, and then we had Karasu and Belabedi and Lindbergh and Morley in the Four Blues. Don't ask me which one was which. The only one I remember is Belabedi because I had to look that up to make sure I had that correct for this video. She's in the Ace Blue, and I'm going to get to that one in a few minutes. So we see another good picture of not the Wind Grandma, I believe, is the flagship for the Revolutionary Army. It's not the same ship. It's a similar ship, but it's not, I don't think it's the same one, and it doesn't quite have the Revolutionary Army flag on it yet. As what ends up becoming their flag later on. And Kuma is just like, so where did you learn about weapons, Dragon-san? And Dragon is just like, I spent some time in the military, in the Navy. Unfortunately, I found no justice there. So this just pretty much confirms what most people thought anyway, that Dragon was in the Navy, was in the Marines for at least some part of his life. Probably part of his young life and everything like that, given who, Garp is. But this also just fully implies that even when he was in the Marines, he was not going by Monkey D. Dragon, or maybe like Ace did, where he used Portcullis D. Ace as his name. Maybe Dragon used his mother's last name when he was when he was in the Marines and everything like that, so he wouldn't be given favoritism as Garp's son. Just a possibility. I'm sure a lot of people have pointed that out already at this point in time. But he's just like, but I found no justice there. Which, even with his father, even with Garp's rank, I can understand why Dragon would be saying that, given a lot of the other stuff that we have seen military, the Marines witness and everything like that. So, yeah. And Ivankov is just like, Marine or revolutionary? This man is determined to help others. Which, that implies that even Ivankov is well aware of the fact that not all Marines are bad. And even us as the audience are aware that not all Marines are bad, because we see that with Garp is not a bad Marine. Kuzan was not a bad Marine, even though he left at this point in time. We have Fujitora, we have Tashigi and Smoker and Hina that are not bad Marines, that are very good Marines. And we've seen, Kobe and Helmeppo and Hibari and, the other members of Sword, Marines or not, whether you want to go with that or not. There are lots of good Marines and everything. Even Zephyr was a good Marine, even if you don't want to consider him canon or not. There's a lot of that there. Sengoku, but it's also pointing out the fact that, there is this military structure that they have to stick within, and they still have to follow the rules of the Celestial Dragons and of the Gorosei and everything that has been put out by the world government. So, and Ivankov, I don't think Ivankov and Dragon, I don't think Dragon necessarily hates the Marines, because even I think we've heard Dragon state before that it's like, he doesn't hate the Marines, and he does not hate the world government. He just knows that there has to be a better way of dealing with things and of handling things than is generally done by the world government at this point in time. In the majority of things, particularly where the Celestial Dragons are involved and where they allow tyrants to remain in power. We also have this it's another cute panel where we see Dragon and Kuma and Ivankov, and then Ginny is just sitting there stuffing her face while they're all just sitting there and eating and everything like that. So we have that. And Kuma is just like, well, you can rely on me, Dragon. And Dragon's like, you won't regret it. And we see these other points where like Kuma goes back to the Sorbet Kingdom every now and then to go and see their friends and everything and see how the kingdom is doing. We see him going back to the church and everything, and because he doesn't want to abandon them and everything. So he keeps going back and seeing them. And I'm sure Jenny probably joins him on some of these different occasions where they go back to Sorbet and everything and see their friends and all of that. I also would not be surprised if Kuma has made kind of like, honorary graves for his parents and maybe Ginny's parents, stuff like that at this church. So we see that. We do know at some point in time Kuma I guess, does become the king of the Sorbet Kingdom, but that doesn't get explained in this chapter as far as I can tell. And then it's just like, and thus another 8 years would pass, and the sun would continue to rise and set like normal until we get kind of the last page of the chapter, and we cut to 14 years ago, a certain kingdom. Don't get the name of the kingdom, just a certain kingdom. And we see Ginny is there, and she's got some type of a bone sticking out of her mouth, meaning she just probably finished chewing down on something. And they're just like, you look so excited, Jenny-san. And she's like, isn't that obvious? Can you blame me, though? And she's just like, we're so close to the day where we get to link up with Kumishi's squadron. And I'm so happy. I can't hardly breathe and everything. And we see her, she has a gun, or she's got like her rifle and everything. And we see that it is Captain of the Revolutionary Army's Eastern Forces, Ginny. And she's just sitting on a crate that says ammo and everything. And they're just like, Captain Kuma, that lucky dog. He's won the heart of the lady we all admire. And he's just like, you creeps admire me? Gross. And they're like, your words sing and everything. And we cut to where we see Dragon showing up or getting a communication. And what looks to be Baltigo. So I think the island that they're showing where Dragon is supposed to be is Baltigo. Because, it also says that there's a Revolutionary headquarters, Baltigo. I'm an idiot. I'm not 100%. Shut up. This is not functioning at 100% yet right now. And Dragon is just like, Ginny's been captured. The enemies took us by surprise. We're sorry and everything. Forgive us and everything. And there's no break next week, so we will get another chapter next week. But, they said 14 years ago. One thing I wanted to point out here about Ginny first is that her outfit is actually very similar to what we see Bonnie wearing, with like her striped with her striped pants and everything like that. I noticed that is somewhat similar to what we see Bonnie, where like Bonnie has like lots of like the thigh high socks and everything like that, and everything, and like boots and all of that. So we get some of that. And it says Eastern Forces. I don't know if the official translation has it specifically as like the East Blue Forces, because I was just like, okay, I wanted to check that because I was trying to remember which of the four current commanders was in charge of the East Blue, and it is Bello Betty, which, as I said, Bello Betty, I do not know how old Bello Betty is supposed to be off the top of my head, but I know I don't think she's old enough to be Luffy's mother, if I've done the math correct. Because she's only like 30-something, I think. If that. If I'm remembering correctly. But she's in control of the East Blue Forces, of the East Blue branch. So maybe Ginny was some form of like a predecessor to her and everything in that regard. And since we don't get the name of the island, I was just like, okay, well, what are we aware of that happened 14 years ago? Because I was like trying to run through my head of like, okay, well, islands that we know that had problems. I was just like, well, it wouldn't be Oikot, because that's where Nami and Ojiko come from, is the Oikot Kingdom. I was like, well, it wouldn't have been that. That would have been further back than this. Same thing with like, would that have been like where where Sanji's family attacked, where the Germa attacked when they entered the East Blue? And I was just like, I don't think so. I don't think that's during that time frame. And I was trying to remember if there were any other ones that were going on at that time frame. So 14 years ago, Tom's workers finished the sea train, so there's that. And then this is when Beppo leaves Zoe at the age of 8 because he falls off and tries to go find Zeppo, and then that's where he ends up meeting Law and everything like that much later on. And then this is when Virgo is, still, infiltrating the Marines. And this is when Chow Chow is born. And when Charlotte Angelius is born, who is the Charlotte kid that has like the weird worm motorcycle thing, caterpillar motorcycle thing, was what I had there. So I was trying to figure out if there was, like, where you could figure out which country this was, but I'm like, no, I don't think so. I couldn't think of which one it was, and it wasn't listing any other specific countries that were specifically like in conflict or at war at this point in time in the story. So I'm like, well, it wouldn't be that. Someone else probably figured it out, but I just couldn't figure it out. So we have that. As I said, Ginny does have like a similar fashion sense to what we see with Bonnie, in that as well. But, again, it's like, oh, well, if they're a clone, then there's that. If it's mother-daughter, then, Bonnie is, impersonating her mother. Is, imitating her mother in that regard. Maybe there's pictures of Ginny or something like that. And all of that. I do want to point out that when we see Dragon, he does finally have the face tattoo, his, patchwork face tattoo and everything. So we know at least 14 years ago is when he had the tattoo. So we have that. And I think that's about it. There was one other thing I wanted to make a comment on, and it's going off of the whole, yes, I dug him out of the closet again, whole willy-nilly silly old bear comment from last week and everything in regards to, Kuma getting the reference to Winnie the Pooh and everything like that. I wanted to point out that within Winnie the Pooh, there is generally this, you are braver than you believe, you are stronger than you seem, and you are smarter than you think. And that concept in and of itself is something that I think very much fits rather well with Kuma, considering the fact that, Kuma is very brave for a lot of different reasons. He offered himself up to try to help the other slaves escape. He, takes in all of this pain from the villagers. He tried to protect the villagers later on and the other people in the country. He helped overthrow the king. He's joined this revolutionary army to make the world better. He stood up to a freaking celestial dragon when he was like 9 years old. All of this stuff with, Saint Saturn that we saw in the last chapter, are you someone important and everything like that. All of this other stuff for that. And, he is very strong, but he is also very gentle and very kind. And he is very smart. And the smart thing also ends up kind of getting, shown a little bit more as, played on the fact that he is smart later on when he is a cyborg, but he may also have been one of the ones that came up with some of the other plans for like where to send each of the Straw Hats based on information he was given. He determined where to do that and everything and how to deal with that. So I wanted to point that out. Please don't fall. And I think that was everything I had that I wanted to go over for this chapter. And Brenda is like, okay, you've been talking long enough, Mommy. You always needs to pet me now. Yeah, I know. My voice is okay. Hopefully I can work tomorrow. A couple of other quick things for the channel. This one is obviously going up on Sunday. I don't think I'm going to have one of my, Rulers and Royals videos out this week, simply because of the fact of hopefully I will be okay to do the chapter review later this week for this next chapter that'll come out for 1098. And hopefully my voice will be up for that. But also I will hopefully be back to my regular job, and I need, my voice to do the regular job where I actually get paid. And hopefully I can be up to doing that tomorrow and everything. So I don't think I'll be doing any other recording except for the chapter review this week. But I'm just going to move the Miyazaki review that was supposed to go up today and have that go up on like Tuesday or Wednesday or something, instead of the Royals and Rulers video, which is supposed to be Otohime. But that'll just get moved to like next week or something. So hopefully I'll be getting back into my regularly scheduled videos for stuff. But I also have like a baby shower coming up for a friend that I'll be going to. And then I have like a cousin that's in a concert, and I'll be going to that, and other stuff over the next several weeks. So, and also we're getting into the holidays. So we'll see how that gets arranged for stuff. And hopefully my voice will be back too. 100% by the next time I do the chapter review for 1098. So this was 1097. I thank you all for watching. I appreciate you waiting patiently for me to get this out. And I hope that you all have a nice rest of your day. And bye.